I'm going to begin this episode with a metaphor. Be bamboo, my friend, be bamboo. Bamboo grows fast, is very flexible, and is super strong. When we're talking about clients, you're going to run into a situation where you're not sure if you should go against what they ask for or if you should comply. If you're a younger creative, you just think automatically the answer has to be go against the client because they don't know what they're doing. And you do at the ripe old age of 22. Let's think about that for a little bit. Most of the time, I'm going to tell you this. You're in the service business, and the only way that you have business is to be of service to your client. You have to understand they're not interfering with your art. You're interfering with their money. They afford you the life that you have, the ability to live and express yourself creatively and pay rent, buy food, and save money for a rainy day. A lot of creative people mistakenly believe themselves as artists, where you have a patron who just pays you to make whatever it is that you make. And oftentimes when the client's asked to, I don't know, make the logo a little bit bigger or to move things around, you have an adverse, negative, emotional reaction to it. And what happens then, and you don't know this because clients are pretty good at hiding their emotions, they just say to themselves when they get in the car, never again. And whoever hired or recommended Rich or Chris, they're dead to me at this point. So not only have you burned that relationship, you burned the person who introduced you, which is an irresponsible thing for you to do. That's why when a client asks me for referral, I'm very careful as to who I refer them to. I want to make sure they do good work and they take good care of them because now my reputation is on the line. It's something that many people don't take into consideration because you're living in your little bubble of designery and you think this is what it's all about. I'm going to give you some real life examples of when it's good to bend and when it's not good to bend. We'll start first, like when it's good to bend. Oftentimes we work with clients who have extremely good taste, who have great ideas and understand their clients really well. And they challenge us. They say, you know what? Those ideas are great, but how far can we push it? That gives us the kind of confidence to say, like, you know what? Most clients rein us back in, but this client in particular is pushing us to go crazy, to push, to find the edges of what they think they can sell to their client. And those are dream relationships. Many times those relationships, if you have an open mind, bear the best fruit. Like you do work that's better than what you could normally do because the clients pushed you. They gave you room to sort of hang yourself. I mean, if you wanted to, you can go and create some pretty crazy things. And oftentimes creatives, we do that. We give them that extra mile because they said, you know what, push it, let's go. And we'll spend more money, more time, more resources trying to find the edges of our creativity. And that's a good time to bend to the client's wishes. Here's the time when it was not good. Many years ago, we were shooting a commercial for Audi. It was the introduction of the A7 in Europe. It was the brand new debut of this kind of hot, fast, four-door sedan that was like a very coupe-like in its design, or coupe, as they say in Europe. It was beautiful. And the budget was tight. We could not rent a techno crane, okay? We could not rent a camera that was controlled with motors that we can repeat certain motions or it wasn't stable. All we could afford was a crane, which was handheld. And we're trying to pull off a very precise shot. And to keep focus and to keep the shot stable is the very difficult thing to do when you have humans involved. And so what ultimately happened was we got the footage back and my visual effects supervisor looked at the footage and said, it's kind of unusable. So what he had to do was he had to take frames from that camera move, break it apart, and photo map it back onto a 3D CG car. It's called photogrammetry, to create a photorealistic version of it. That wound up taking a lot of time and energy. He said that it was not necessary for us to shoot it on a jib arm if we couldn't use a techno crane. So in a case like that, when the client's like, well, we want you to do it this way, but we don't have the budget for you to do it the way that you want, we had to just say, no, we can't do it this way. We do not take responsibility for the shot given the circumstances. And we know that you will not be happy with the result if we do it this way. So we have to devise a new plan. According to my VFX supervisor, he said we should have just gone in there with a still camera, taken a bunch of photos that would have been more usable, less work, less painstaking for him to freeze frames and try to stitch together, reverse engineer static frames. Because you know, when you take a photograph, it's much sharper, higher resolution than if you were pulling video frames from a camera. And so that was the challenge. So in a case like that, we implemented a new rule, which is when we know better, when we know that this is going to lead to a bad result, do not agree, do not comply to what the clients ask for, because we know at the end of the day, they're not going to be happy, we're not going to be happy, and we're going to be eating it in the shorts because we're going to spend all kinds of money to fix something that we knew was not going to work. But there aren't that many cases when you know that in fact that this is not going to work. It's a technical thing. And we as the technical people in this situation, in this relationship, know better. Most of the times, you want to die on the hill for an aesthetic thing. and you believe your aesthetic or your taste is superior and therefore has to be the way that it's going to go. We know this. Aesthetics are subjective. No one has the ability to say this is always the best solution. It's contextual and it's relevant to the client and to the situation and the time. A lot of us have relationships with our clients and we look at ourselves as a vendor, and the vendor has no power in the relationship. We need to shift our mindset from being a vendor to a collaborator or a consultant, in which case they're paying you good money for your opinions and ideas and recommendations. And oftentimes you may disagree. You may have a better way. As long as it's not purely subjective and egotistical, here's what I suggest that you say. This phrase usually gets you out of a lot of trouble and gets you to have your way and them thanking you for it. Here's the phrase, everybody. You're the boss. At the end of the day, I will do exactly what you asked me to do. But hear me out on this one thing. I'm concerned about X because it will lead to Y. Having given you that information, I'm relinquishing my responsibility. You need to make the decision that's best for you. So what we're doing there is we're saying, you have the power. I respect your authority, but I have to voice something that I know is not going to work. But at the end of the day, you get to make that decision. So the next time you get pushback from your clients, run through these 3 things before you give them an emotional reaction. Number 1, ask yourself, is the request reasonable? If it's a reasonable request, it's within the scope of work, well, then you should just say yes. Number 2, is the request something that you know technically is going to lead to problems? If that's the case, what you need to do is you have to say, stop. We have to have a serious conversation. I need to explain to you something. It's not about subjectively me wanting to do X versus Y. It's like, here's the problem, what's going to happen. And in this way, I think you're tapping into an idea called the challenger sale, which is not to sell something, but to get the clients to question if this is the right way to proceed. So now you're tapping into the idea from the challenger sale, which is not to close the sale, but to get the clients to think, I never thought of it that way before, and to make them part of the decision-making process. Number 3 is if it's purely subjective, where it's if you were to poll 10 creatives, 10 designers, 10 directors, 10 editors and say which one's the best, and you're not gonna get the same answer, maybe you just need to let that one go. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have a nightmare client situation where you're not sure if the clients are pushing you too much or if you should push back, let me know in the comments, send me a DM.